Ne je ne go wo wo be ha den ste. Ne je ne go den go be ha den ste. Hey yana hey 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 yana. Ne je ne go wo wo yoth gwe be ha den ste. Ne je ne go wo wo be ne takis.
Akondashi ajabe she'ina ish'ot kohonjish akodit wasabeha ish'oliya she'tat no jo'e altsab belganik jo'be khishna wasachino yego alla en leche nina halongat oliya ba'kunsim lelchinda والخارج كيتعيش وثبي شياجة إنشتخا هذا بقول جن بجنو جو إيخد إسات وثو نني إيخد باكنسن أحيانا.
When I hear the phrase "I'll with a bit," I think of when you are out cheering and you're trying to catch one of those last withers, and he flies through the air, headbutts you in the eye, leaves you with a nice bruiser, and then you continue cheering. You get it done. You figure out a way to make it work despite everything that may be mounting against you. That's what I think about. And then you plan the next butchering.
Man, there's a song from Bruce Springsteen, and it's our anthem song. Because when we're down and out, I put that song on, and it says there's going to be hard times coming, there's going to be good times coming, but there's also going to be hard times coming. Swing that ball at me, because I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to work hard. I'm going to work as hard as I can to do what needs to be done. It's just being honest and upfront and working your butt off. Bring that wrecking ball on is all I can say, and that's what the word is that.
Ne je ne go wo wo be ne takis. Ne je ne go den go be ha den ste. Hey yana hey 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 yana. Ne je ne go wo wo do te be ha den ste. Ne je ne go wo wo.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our Tall Whippet series, coming to you live from Salie, Arizona. It's wonderful to be here with you guys. Thank you guys all for joining us, either through our Zoom room, through our Facebook Live. We're also live on KXWR with Miss L.A. Williams. And without further ado, once again, my name is Christine Ami. I am the Grant Director for the Navajo Cultural Arts Program, but I am more than privileged to present our guest for today's series, Miss Emmi Whitehorse. Without further ado, would you like to introduce yourself to the crowd?
Sure. I'm indeed Emmi Whitehorse, and I have been painting, I guess, for about 40 years plus now. I was born in New Mexico, in Crownpoint, because that was the only hospital available. But I grew up in Whitehorse, New Mexico. I come from a family of sheep herders. We were pretty nomadic. We lived and moved, with the animals, and spent a lot of our childhood years taking care of animals and sheep herding. And when you do that, there's a whole lot of nothing to do. So I had to entertain myself, and one of the ways, I came about to drawing is, because that was all you could do to, entertain yourself, with coloring books, drawing on the sand, listening to music, and, trying not to eat your lunch before noon, and just looking at nature. So that's how I started doing my work.
It's a great introduction. I can sympathize with trying to hold off with lunch because when you're out there, it just the time seems to be a lot longer than it really is. And so, but no, it's wonderful to have you join us today. We had been playing phone, I guess, internet tag for the past couple months since like almost the end of the summer of last year, and so. It was I was glad that we were able to finally get you onto to the programming. It was really funny because my husband's an artist over with Swaya, and so he was working with I think your husband had come in and came to visit his virtual booth when they had the Swaya set up, and it was and so he got off with him and he's like, I think Mark Bhakti was just in my room. And so we started doing what everybody does, which is Google people. And then because he started talking about his wife who was a painter and he never mentioned your name. And so we were like, who's his wife? What are the techniques that she's using? And sure enough, Emmi Whitehorse name pops up and we're like, what a small world. And I was like, I'm trying to get Emmi on our programming and so but anyway, the world is very small. We're finding out even more so. And so before we jumped on, obviously our programming, we have like questions that we have for you, but please feel free to jump in and ask any of your own questions that you may have about the programming that we have and any of the areas that may just pop up. So I guess we'll kind of just jump right into our first question that we have for you and discuss a little bit about the challenges that you have had to overcome as a Navajo artist. We know you as a painter and a printmaker, and you have these wonderful exhibits that are up even throughout the pandemic. What do you find as a Navajo artist has been some of the biggest challenges that you have overcome?
Well, first and foremost, I guess for me was to be a minority woman, and not being taken seriously, and being told, that where I came from, art was something that was not for contemporary art was not something for us. And then just discrimination as a student, as a minority student, was probably the biggest hurdle. So those were some of the biggest challenges that I have encountered on my way to learning my process. But after leaving the school environment, there were even more hurdles to overcome because, again, a lot of the people who, viewed art and did the curating for shows were always, telling you that, you shouldn't be doing this. This is contemporary artwork. This is a European tradition. You should be home making weavings, pottery. That's what your people are known for. And you have no business, trying to, work in a contemporary European mode. So that was the other problems or hurdles that I had to overcome, and then also later on, again, not having my work appreciated or taken seriously as a female artist. Our work as feminine artists, female minority artists, we were relegated to the basement. Our works were never shown. They were not collected by museums because they deemed it as cultural, ethnographic items. And so, some museums would collect our work, but they would never be shown. They would just relegate it to the basement. And, our work as contemporary was, never taken seriously. So, and that finally is, has changed. It's thawed out. And so now you see a lot of minority women, being shown in museums. So that definitely took a long time to get over. And but like the word that you use for your awołí, you really have to persevere. You really have to push ahead. You really have to be stubborn and just listen to your own voice. And so that's basically what I did, and it's made me have a really different work. You can say, that's an Emmi Whitehorse, and it's very, I hope it's very unique still.
Most definitely, absolutely unique. And for me personally, I just love the color palette that you see. I can see landscapes, I can see imagery, I can see, everything in terms of the supernatural and the natural just seem to come together from my own perspective. And I'm most definitely not a professional art critic, to say the least. But you bring up a lot of really great points, and unfortunately, like, points that we have to talk about in terms of the growth of female artists within the contemporary realm, as well as the role of Navajo artists, taking a look at that sphere. And I have to confess, it's one of the things that has really, I've really learned a lot being in the position that I am, working with cultural artisans, is being able to allow and fight and push for our cultural artisans to utilize, European techniques, African techniques, to explore with all of these different types of modes of creating art, because it's so, it just opens up a pathway of communication to all these different types of cultures. And so that was a learning process for me to actually have to go through, because I remember one of our weavers was like, I want to learn on a standing loom. And I was like, that's not what we do. And talking to her, Eileen Nagel, and she was like, no, we can start to collaborate and work through these different types of techniques, and I can create that way. And so I appreciate it when people always remind me that that we have this opportunity to demonstrate those types of contemporary techniques in our work. So yeah, most definitely. And you can definitely pick out an Emmi Whitehorse piece, so don't fear not on that. I guess, talk a little bit about your schooling. How did you start developing these techniques? What was your process?
I was a very bad student, and when I went to school, I was only interested in drawing, and I was not allowed paper because I wouldn't listen. I would just draw. But I did manage to get through school. I was a terrible student, and but for people out there with kids, just tell them you got to make good grades, because it's much easier for them to get scholarships if they have good grades all the way through their school years. But I managed to get a small scholarship from in my high school that I went to, and it was like, wow, I could do something with this. And so I thought, this is serious. So I applied to the University of New Mexico, because it was in New Mexico, and it was only a 2 or 3 hour drive from my mom's house, because she refused to let me go anywhere further. I wanted to go to Arizona's ASU so badly, but my mom said, no, that's too far away. So I got stuck with UNM. While there, I met some people, and there were probably only 5 or 6 Native American students there in the art department, because what the school was doing was, if they ended up in the art department, they would send them over to Art 101 or educational art. So, they were just funneling everybody over to the teacher's program. And so, they tried that on me, and I said, no, that's not what I want to do. I don't want to teach. I want to learn to be an artist. And so I stayed in the university program, and it was a very, very tough environment, very demeaning sometimes. And, you just had to navigate that whole system and find teachers that were, that you like, that were very open, with their advices and, helped you, along the way. And then also the friends that I made were also very, very encouraging and supportive. And, we would hang out together and kind of lick our wounds afterwards. And Paul Willado is one of the students that I met at UNM when I went there. I was probably—
Hope he wasn't one of the bullies there.
Yes, he was in the sculpture department, and so we all ended up meeting each other, running into each other. You couldn't help but notice each other, run into each other. So Paul was one of our our mature students, because he had been there for a while, and then he moved on to Ann Arbor, Michigan, to do the rest of his schoolwork. So there was a lot of people that came and went, but just there was like a core group of people that we stayed together and graduated. Let's see. I became interested in printmaking because the painting teachers were extremely prejudiced towards us. One of the teachers took me aside along with another woman. She was Hispanic. She was from Taos, New Mexico. And she had a last name, Velasquez. And never mind, she had the name of Velasquez, the great painter. I always thought she came from that line of great painters. They pull the guy, the teacher pulls us aside and tells us, "You are two of my worst students. You will never learn how to paint. This is European method. You will never ever learn, because your culture was never ever introduced to anything, as highly European as this. So you might want to change course. You might want to change, teachers, but he just pointed us out and told us that we'd never learn how to paint. Yeah, I hated painting, to tell you the truth, because we had to use acrylics, and acrylics out here was just awful. It just dried up on you the moment you tried working with it, and I just could not, paint like this at a white piece of square. And plus the canvas was bouncing, and I just had a hard time approaching it. So I went more into drawing, and when I did that, I discovered printmaking, and it was immediate, for me. And it was drawing on a big slab of stone, limestone. And to me, that was just so, home to me, because I remember drawing on sand at home, and this was very much like it. So I just took it to it like a duck to water, and ended up getting my degree in printmaking. And plus the teachers were very receptive and open, and that made it so much easier, for me to go down that road.
So when did you see yourself starting to gravitate more towards painting?
Years later, a teacher from New York, a woman artist, she was very, she wore combat boots. She had pretty much shaved head. We've never seen a woman like her, and that was Harmony Hammond. She arrived from New York, and she was the only woman teacher that they ever allowed to do like a guest teacher for a year or so, I think. And I just, I took her class, and I said, I just can't paint because it's just, unwieldy. And so she just said, the best thing you can do is just to go at it any which way you can and arrive at it. She said, if you can paint on the floor, paint on the floor. If you have to pour and throw, paint, do it. And so I thought, okay. So I took my, by that time I was very, familiar with paper, and I really, really love paper. And so I just decided to work flat on a tabletop. And then everything fell into place for me when I started working on a table flat. So that just opened doors for me, and it just takes one teacher somewhere along the line to just open your mind for you.
It's, and that's, I think, is really important about what you're bringing up, is the role of instructors and faculty in a student's life, right? They can bring you to the utmost highs, and they can bring you to the most lows. And I think that's a good reminder, right, for faculty just in general to understand the role that you can have in a student's lives. And so kind of makes me feel bad for that lady who pulled you aside and told you you'd never make it, right? That you would never.
I had just all male teachers.
All
there were not any female teachers. I had only male teachers, and that was it.
Yep. No, I understand. And then, all of a sudden you hit this level of success that we were talking about at the very beginning, where like when you see an Emmi Whitehorse piece, it's an Emmi Whitehorse piece. And so when did you realize that what you were doing was going to be successful? However you wanted to find success. It doesn't have to be economically based, but when you realize that you hit something, that you found a home and you were going to be able to make a life out of this.
Oh gosh. I started entering little shows around town. And at one of those shows, a gallery owner had visited the show, and she saw my work there, and she approached me and said, your work is interesting. Would you like to show? I would like to work with you. And so I was like, oh my God, So I was very, very lucky in that sense that she liked my work, and so I just kept doing what I was doing. But also I was extremely young. I was something like 18 years old, and at that age you just think you're God's gift to the world or whatever. You just don't have stops or a critical eye at that point. And so you just do a lot of work. And sometimes I see a lot of the earlier works and I just kind of go, oh God, I did that, so some of the things I did, I wish I could take back and redo. And then there's some that I just go, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I really did that, So, so lo and behold, I did the show with her and got it up on the wall. Took my parents to see it, and it was in Phoenix. And she had it all nicely framed up because it was all just paper pieces. And I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe people are coming to see the show. And and my parents were there, and they just kind of looked at the work, and they just kind of, headed to the back of the room, and they just sat back there the entire time, didn't say a word. And then after the show was over, we all went out to dinner, and they sat through dinner and didn't say anything. And then we just decided we'd all go back that same night. And so we all packed ourselves in the car and started driving. I drove all the way back. And just as we were going into past the state line into New Mexico, going over the state line into New Mexico, and the sun was just, the early morning sun was just coming up, peeking up, and the light was starting to illuminate the landscape. And finally, then my grandmother clears her throat in the back of the car, and she says, well, thank you for bringing us to see your show, and just let us see what it is that you do exactly, and just wonderful to see how how you're progressing, and we can see that you are you're well off. You're going to be fine. You're on your own. You can do this now. They were just so proud, and that was the moment. I can kind of see them, pushing you out of the nest and going, you made it, kid, go for it. And it was just like, okay, I did it, okay, so and that was kind of a beginning for me, I guess, to just really do just art from there on. I never had a job. I've never had to have two jobs to meet my bills. I've always just painted. I have to admit have been extremely lucky in that way. There's a lot of painters, artists who start out, but they don't ever get successful in their lifetime. So it's a very, very harsh or hard business, also on the other hand too. So
it must have been such a relief that took 6-7 hours for it to come out in the car riding, knowing that there was this, acceptance and a support, a very strong, silent support. Even just the imagery, the way that you tell the story of pushing you into that daybreak, it was a kind of almost like a rebirthing, of a new stage in your life. So it's a beautiful story, and it just demonstrates it. I can see how that ties into a lot of your work. That's definitely present. And so that leads us to one of our other questions, which is, how does your Navajo culture, how is it reflected in your work?
Well, when I first started out, I was, casting about for imagery. And so I was looking at, things at home. I was looking at the sheep pins, the grass, markings that were on the sheep pins. And so, there were brand marks on the sheep pen doors, just, testing the brand to see if it was, all connecting on all, on the flat surface, that kind of testing, and they would just dry and be left as is. And so I thought that's an interesting piece of what do you call it, artwork or figure to work with. And so I included that in my drawings, and I changed it, and I played around with it upside down this way. and also, the markings on the doors. My grandmother would count the Roman numeral, the 1, 2, 3, 4, and the slash. And so that way she would keep count of how many, sheep. She would remember how many sheep she had. And so, those were all scratched on the gates. And I just thought that was, such a wonderful imagery. So I would put all of that in my work. And then also, the time of day, the shadows, the dark shadows that would fall, I started, putting that in my work. And I distinctly wanted to do something that was uniquely me, something that I knew I really, wanted to put that, in my work. When I was coming out to be an artist, I saw a lot of young Native artists, mostly from different tribes, and everybody was painting Indians on horsebacks, with the big old feather headdresses, and I'm looking at that and thinking, my people don't look like that. They don't dress like that. And I thought, and then I don't want to do that because everybody's doing that. And I thought, what is it that I know, something that I know, that would be different and that would be uniquely mine. And so I decided I'll do what I know. And what I know was my backyard, the land that's out there, the animals, the heat, the sun, the rising, the setting of the sun, the colors of the day, all that, soundlessness. There's hardly any sound when you're out there by yourself. And so, I thought, that's what I know. I know that very well. And I grew up with that. And so I decided that's going to be my focus. So I just, have been mining that, my backyard ever since.
I mean, it's very apparent, and in your pieces, the way that you explain all of those types of connections, and I really do. I like the concept of soundlessness. I do a lot of work in anthropology, and we always talk about, right, the significance of the silent, right, the silent moments, and what those mean, and the interpretations of everything that's going around that ties back into those silent, what we would consider silent moments or soundless moments. I guess you talked a little bit about the tension between, what the outside influence was saying that you should be doing, right? That you should be weaving. That's what Navajo women do. That's what they're known for. So I can see that definite creative tension there. But what do you see in terms of how you develop your pieces, your paintings, and your prints? How do you see any types of creative tensions that may exist between, cultural teachings and your work as an innovative artist?
No, I don't see any tension because, I work, with nature, and it's not anything culturally sensitive. It's not, it's not like being a sand painter, or, there was another student that I went to school with, and he was, learning to be a singer. And he would make these houses, the House of Dawn, House of, all these other things, and the deities, and he would make, all the healing ceremonies and stories, and he would, bring them to life and make, ceramic objects out of them. And I could see something, like that being culturally insensitive, and having, your elderly say, that's not appropriate. You should not be showing that. But for me, it's never happened, to me, and it's because it's about the land, and that to us was very, very important. The land, how it supported us, and how it gave us a home, shelter, how it supported all our livelihood, and water and all of those things. And so I don't think I had any, tensions as far as that. My grandmother wove, and I did, learn how to weave, and I helped her a lot when she got older. But what I saw, or what I took away from that, was that the way she worked, on the loom, she did the standing loom, and she would, draw out a pattern, and then she would work her way up on that, and then you would see how she created things that would kind of move in and out, optical illusions, black and white, gray. That to me was so abstract and just contemporary, and how that flat wove, created dimension and space that you could move in and out. That to me was so interesting, and I think that's where you see that depth that you see in my work, in the flatness. I try to bring, a world that you can fall into. I just was mesmerized by that as a child. So, that traditional, part I took, from my grandmother. So, but that's to me was more of a gift than a cultural, stepping on cultural sensibilities.
It's really like I want to say convenient, but it's more than convenient, right? It allows for you to just express you as you are, and the visions that you're working with. I'm hoping that you don't mind. I'm going to pull up a couple of the images that you sent us. If you could tell us a little bit about those images. Let me see if I can do this. Come on, technology, work with me today. This particular piece was one of my favorite ones that you had submitted to us. Here we go. There we go. Could you talk to us a little bit about that piece?
These are the small works that I do. They're like 12 inches by 12 inches. I think I started them because I had ruined a painting, and there was one spot when I was tearing it up. There was one spot that was left, and I thought, oh, that doesn't look too bad, so I cut it out, and thought, this is not a bad little piece of work. And so I began doing those small pieces of work, and yes, I destroy a lot of work, because sometimes it just doesn't work, and so you just have to end up tearing it up and throwing it away. But I've done a lot of these, and kind of more thinking in line of people who I did it so that people who really liked my work would have a small piece of it, and and still enjoy the work. Because at my age, in my 60s, my prices have finally really gone finally gone up, and so these are more the 1,000 just under the $1,000 mark, and a lot of people can afford those. So I did it also, had keeping that in mind for others to enjoy work. Just a lot of marking. I love making up things. There's like water pools. There's like water dropping. When you see that, the rings radiate from out of that. There's seed pods in there, little tiny. Onto the left side, there's like little seed pods, and I don't know what it is, but I just love circles. I love making circles. But if you look down from the top down, our sheep pens were all in the round. Our houses were all in the round, and I think that's where seeing that. I like that sense of that circle, that somehow feels very comfortable. It seems very homey to me. But I also have this bad habit of, kind of doing this out of body experience and trying to zoom out and looking down from the top down and seeing, how things look, from like a bird's view. And so, I try to, get that sense also. But I do like to try to keep it very airy, very free, and also, to let you play in that field. You can make up things. You can go, fishing, like a little fish going through that, little area, going in and out, and that's one of the other things that, I guess I let people make up their minds as to what they see, and how it makes them feel. But most of all, I just hope it does make them feel happy.
I can tell you that it makes me feel happy. So if that's any kind of consolation, then that's what we'll roll with. We do have a comment from Bonnie from Crownpoint. She said that she's a former classmate of yours. She says hi, coming off of our Facebook live page. Let's see. So what
was Bonnie's last name?
I'm gonna go with Benali right now, but I'm not sure if she's
married.
Okay.
Oh my God. I think I know her. I was hoping that I would connect with her again eventually. So hello, Bonnie.
The world of the internet, which brings us to our next topic that I have, which is the pandemic, right? And you have been so tremendously fortunate to be able to produce an entire exhibit, right? My understanding is throughout the pandemic and actually get it to show. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the work that you've been doing throughout the pandemic and how it was to launch an internet exhibit.
It was a very frustrating event, because the very long panel that you see me sitting in front of took me about a year to do, because the little mica pieces took forever to cut out and glue down, and there was about 2 months of just moving them around, trying to keep the dust off of it, and then gluing them down. It just took forever, and then finally pack it up and ship it to it was in a show in Dallas, and so it was finally like, oh my God, just get her done and get put it up, and then right after the opening, the shutdown happened. So 3 months of the show up and nobody could see it. It was very frustrating. So we brought it back out to Santa Fe, and we rehung it, and I finally finished the other show that I started in Tucson, and we hung it up with that. It had a very nice, calm feel to them, and I thought this is kind of a very healing aspect to it. You sit and you meditate. It gave that vibe. It gave that sense of feeling, in the work. And the mica was just, incredible. It was shiny in some parts and reflective, and it just, you just had this idea. You were either zooming through space or walking this incredible shiny path, and that was where the title Pollen Path came from for the panel, and I wanted to do something that was restorative, a place to rest your eyes, recenter yourself, and get, some sense of healing, some sense of you're okay, you're going to be, you're fine, to, because there was a lot of fear. You had no idea, you just saw and you heard all, everybody getting sick and dying, and how hard it was for them. And it was just, everything was just so sad. I lost my brother to COVID. He got it and died as a result of it. And it just, it was just a very terrible time of just living in fear. I was just horrified or terrified to go to the grocery store to get food. I would just, double up on my mask, dart in there, and avoid people like, they had Ebola or something, and and just get out as fast as I could. Just, I think everybody lived like that too. And so this work that I did was, basically just to calm myself down and think, look to yourself, for your, your inner, healing. You can face the world. You can do it. And then also, hopefully give that sense of relief or that sense of happiness, whatever, however small, to the rest of the world too. And so, that was the show that I did for the Santa Fe show, and you can access it at the gallery site too. So
We'll be sure to get that gallery site up too, so that people can check that out. But Emmi, thank you for being so honest about this. It's difficult to talk about those kinds of realities and the fear component that's associated with the way in which we're living right now, and everything that we were going through, especially in the summertime, and until today, and probably for a couple more months. So I really appreciate the honesty, and obviously we send our condolences for the passing of your brother. It's something it's impacted all of us, really. That your work does help. We see it in the chat right now. It does. It impacts people, and it does bring a sense of relief and and hope to our people. So it's inspiring, to be quite frank. So I appreciate all the work that you've been doing with that, and you can see that you're also using your work as kind of like a holistic healing, take care of me kind of remedy. That's at least from what I'm understanding. How does your work help you to grow in that holistic manner? What kind of, I guess, how does your holistic well-being impact your work? If you're sad, does it impact your work? If you're scared, does it impact your work?
I take the lead from my grandmother. If she was upset and if there was something, off, something terrible was going on in her life, she would not weave. She would just, put it aside, because I think she thought that, weaving, this terrible, miasma or whatever you could call it, with the blanket, that it would be bad luck, or it might be it was not a good thing to pass it along to other people or sell it. And so she would just put it away. And so I do the same now, taking, the cue from her. If I'm sad, I don't work. If I'm sick, I don't work. I only work, when I'm in a good mood, I'm happy. The TV's on. I watch anime 24/7. I love anime. So if you look over this way a little bit more, you'll see my anime calendars and my wall there, so you can see the. I love Japanese anime, and I, so I, I surround myself with a lot of kind of noise. I usually have the TV on sometimes, but not the sound, but I will have the music on from the radio station or CDs. So I usually work pretty much all day. I used to work at night too, but I have a bit of a color blindness, so I can't tell the difference between purple, green, black, and gray. So I have to quit working at night. It's kind of an interesting problem, because now I have to take my husband shopping with me and ask him, okay, is this black or is this blue? You know, which one? You know, so it's kind of a you just have to laugh at stuff like that, but you know, stuff like that happens anyway. So so that is, you know, that's my work. I work in a studio that is very large, and it has a big windows, because I have to have the light. You know, if there's a lot of light streaming in, I'm just happy. And I usually work very close to the window, and that's, you know, normally how I work. So
You have made our viewership go nuts with your anime commentary. Everybody's really excited. Zephyrin would like to know, what is your favorite anime?
oh gosh, Bleach or Bleach. That was my favorite. Oh gosh, the Gundam series. I can't remember the name of that, but the Gundam series, the Spirited Away, My Friend Totoro, Inuyasha, of course. So you know, I have Samurai Jack. That's, oh gosh, you guys got to see Samurai Jack. Look at the background drawing. The background drawings are just exquisite. So I love, you know, that's one of my fave is Samurai Jack, and oh gosh, there's a whole bunch more that I'm forgetting at the moment, but it's something that's you know, from childhood too. You know, in the winter, at night, you know, my grandmother would tell stories, and the animals would be animated. You know, the animals would stand, talk to people, and they would interact with people. And anime is the same, you know, for me. It was just like, oh my God, I know this. You know, I know this. I'm familiar with this. So, you know, that's how, you know, that's how I guess I just connect with anime.
We do have a suggestion coming in. Somebody wants to know if you would be willing to make an anime-inspired piece. So just put that on the back burner and think about it for some future shows. Apparently, there's a huge following now of Emmi Whitehorse and anime that are converging in this particular segment of Tawa the Bay. No, that's really great that you have those other, like I said, there's this variety of art that just converges on who you are. When you take a look yeah, go ahead.
Oh, of course, you know, I look at buildings. I love looking at buildings, architecture, and I also like to go to the mall and look at fabrics, you know, just the way the clothes are designed. I just have to look, you know, you just have to feel, look at the fabrics, and you just kind of go, wow. And, you know, see how that fits on the body, how that works with the body, you know, those kinds of things. And then, you know, again, just watching a lot of cartoons on, you know, anime on TV. So that's some of the, and travel. I love to travel and, you know, look at, again, the same things, buildings, you know, when I could do travel. So I have been extremely lucky in the fact that I have been able to travel a lot. Spent a lot of time in Belgium, in you know, Germany. I got a artist residence residency in Germany for a month, and by the time it was over, I was like, no more. I I would have been so much happier if it would have been somewhere else, but it was in Germany. So, you know, I do, you know, I do find traveling very interesting, and I do get a lot of information from that. I was in Iceland, or not Iceland, but in Finland, and it was in the city, and I saw it was just unbearably cold. If you've never experienced cold, that is just the coldest. I saw these very modern, tall buildings, but every building had like sheets of glass over the windows. Outside building all had sheets of glass outside the window. And what it did was to buffer the winds, you know, from the building, and kind of insulate the building, you know, also from, you know, the cold. And I thought that's very interesting, you know, to have something so fragile and so clear like that, and use it, you know, for a very important purpose. And so when I came back from that, I did a whole series of very thin, you know, rice paper, you know, over my work, and then, you know, and I can't remember what I called it, but that just, you know, sparked an idea, and, you know, things like that I do notice and take away, you know, something from it.
That's, you know, you can learn so much through travel. I guess, you know, bringing it back to home, right, to the Navajo Nation. How do you feel, or Navajo people in general, how do you feel that your art impacts your community, your Navajo community?
I hope it puts them on a pedestal, you know, that they know they are extremely gifted people. They can, you know, they can just do unbelievable works, do unbelievable things. You know, all my life as a child, I was either looked down on, you know, not, you know, taken seriously. I was always told, you know, that's not for you. You know, you're not smart enough to do this, and you're not smart enough to know this. You know, all my life I was told that. But, you know, just to be able to see my work in the Museum of Modern Art in New York is like, wow. I hope, you know, someday, you know, the new kids that come after me, they'll say, there's a Navajo woman who did it. I am going to, you know, do even better. I hope it gives them the inspiration to make them think I can do, you know, even better, or I can, oh, you know, she did it, I can do it too. You know, I hope, you know, it lifts up, you know, people. I hope it makes, you know, people proud that there's someone out there, you know, being their ambassador, their you know, their representative in art, representing them in art, because, you know, that's basically the way I see myself. You know, I see myself as an ambassador for, you know, my people, my generation. So I'm always very, you know, very careful of what I say, what I do, you know, when I do travel.
I hope you guys are listening. We have a whole bunch of students online and on the radio and in our Zoom room to, you know, I hope that it's inspiring. It's inspiring me. I'm not an artist by any means, but we're starting to round down to the final couple questions of our conversation today. And so, Emmi, the second to last question that we have is, what advice would you offer to developing Navajo artists? Here at the college, we have several BFA programs, everything from painting, silversmithing, graphic design, photography, weaving, and then we have Navajo Cultural Arts certificate programs, up and developing minors that are coming forth. To those students, what type of advice would you give them as they develop in their academic career?
You know, don't go into art just because you think you can make money and to be famous, because there are a gazillion other people in the world who all want to do the same thing. So don't go into art if that's what you want. Go into art if it is a passion, if that's the only thing you know how or what it is that you do. It's a very tricky business. Like I said before, you might not ever be discovered, or you could be the darling of the art world overnight. You just don't know. It's a very tricky business. It's always feast or famine. Some days you have money, some months you don't have any money. It's always going to be like that, so just be prepared. Read as much you can on the history of art. It's important for you to know how a lot of the early works were done, where in Europe, what parts of Europe, all of that is necessary. It's very necessary, because you will always be, someone will ask you, about your classical training, your classical knowledge of art. So you want to be sure that you're up, your history, your art history. Just be aware of everybody else that is out there too, because they're always doing something different. There's a lot of electronic art now. It is just mesmerizing. But I look at a lot of other artists, and I admire a lot of other artists, but it's the quirky, odd things that they do that I admire about them, and make some of them, it makes them my favorite. But I will never paint like them or try to paint like them, because that's what they do, makes them unique, and I have what I do that makes me unique. So and a lot of patience too. You need I guess someone who has an eye, that you can ask questions, that you can ask advice for. Also take a business course. I'm not kidding. Take a business course so you know the ins and outs out of the gallery business. Make friends with a lawyer. Yes. So that they can advise you and help you if ever any legalities, issues of legalities come up. There are a lot of people who collect art, and they're lawyers. So make friends with lawyers. Gosh, what else? Be resourceful, be resilient. Just just have a thick skin too, because you will get a lot of criticism. You will get a lot of critics that do not like your work, and they will say mean things about your work. But don't let that slow you down. Just like the word says, just persistence. Be persistent. Be stubborn. Keep going. For that dream, or for that idea, or whatever it is you want to achieve.
Thank you so much. I hope everybody is furiously taking notes, and furiously stalking people on Instagram to find your lawyer best friend. So, but you're right. It is. You'd be surprised the type of legalities that come across in the art world that require that type of expertise. So I wanted to say thank you on behalf of everybody watching, and Diné College and our Navajo Cultural Arts Program and our Fine Arts Department. We have one, if you were to wrap.
Is there one more thing I can say?
Yes, of course.
As far as being, the advice to the young, presentation is extremely important. Make sure it is beautifully done, beautifully framed, matted, however way, you can, present it. That is very important. And always have a body of work, even your beginning to the end, there's your first works, to what you're doing now, so that, people can kind of look how far you've come along, or, what you've been doing, earlier on. So, those kinds of things are very important. The presentation is very, very important, and being dedicated to what you are doing, treat it like a business, and be on time. And when you say you're going to do something, do it, show up, just don't ever blow anybody up. It's a very small world, the art world, and everybody knows each other. And so if you blow it with somebody over here, everybody else is going to know it. So, just be aware of that, be very businesslike with your work and your career, and your approach to galleries. So I forgot to add that.
Also very important, right? That concept of goes both ways, right? Towards the positive and the negative. So remember, guys, don't burn any bridges, and don't burn your portfolio.
Exactly.
Less portfolios around. And if you could wrap up the phrase or in a couple sentences, what does that mean to you?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Or even that phrase, what does it mean to you?
The word awołí. Awołí to me is try with all your might. That was a lot of what I heard when I went to school. Yego, and my parents would always say yego and yego ohos, which means, steady hard, do you try harder, or do well. Be persistent, try harder, do it, just with all your might. That's what the word translates. That's what it translates.
Well, thank you very much, Emmi. We appreciate it. Thank you to all our listeners on the KXWR, on Denton College Live, and of course in our Zoom room, for taking the time to join us this Wednesday. We'll be back in 2 weeks with our next segment of our Tall with a Bit series. Thank you so much, Emmi. Make sure that when you're traveling, you are staying safe, and we'll be in contact soon. So have a great Wednesday, everybody, and we will talk to you all soon.
Okay, thank you.
Ne je ne go be haden ste. Ne je ne go begin go be haden ste. Hey